Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final webinar in the Healthy Habits series, Healthy at the Holidays today. My name is Carrie Letnan of Firefly Community, and as I mentioned, this is our final installment of our Healthy Habits webinar series, which is available for free. And if you've missed any of the previous recordings and would like to check those out, the webinars are all available in the members section of our website. So if you go to Firefly Community and create a member login and go to member content, you would see all of the 4 webinars in this series. So without further ado, let's get started today. We'll start with a guide to eating healthy at the holidays. We will talk a bit about healthy holiday beverages and how to make better choices there. Talk about family meals, holiday parties, all those things that you'll have obligations to attend over the next several weeks and how to stay healthy during those. And also review how to make traditions healthy. So let's get started with healthy eating. And this slide, I won't go through a lot of detail on this slide because we did talk about a lot of this stuff in a previous Healthy Habits webinar. So if you missed that, I recommend you go back to the food labels and building a healthy lunch webinar, and you'll find a lot more detail on each of these. But wanted to quickly cover the things that are important to include when you are trying to eat a healthier diet. So we all know that we should eat more fruits and vegetables. In fact, at each of our meals, half of our plate should be fruits and vegetables so that we make sure we're getting the nutrients that we need, all of those great vitamins and minerals that come from eating a variety of colors of fruits and vegetables. So I think we're all pretty familiar with the fact that we need to include those in our diet. The other thing I want to touch on is the importance of whole grains. And again, I won't spend a lot of time on this given that I've talked in more detail about this in previous webinars, but I want to make a distinction here between eating whole grains and refined processed grains. So we do want to make sure that we are eating whole grains, so we make sure we're getting enough fiber, that we're getting carbohydrates to help provide energy to the body. So including those in your meals are important, and we'll talk about ways to do that a little later in this presentation. Next, I want to spend a moment to talk about plant alternatives for getting enough protein in your diet. So beans and legumes, nuts and seeds are all great ways to be sure that you're getting protein in your diet that is healthy protein and doesn't include a lot of saturated fat that we get from eating animal products. So fish is another thing that you can include to be sure that you're getting protein that is a healthy source of protein. Plant-based alternatives are other options that are available. There's lots of things out there on the market now. I would say the caveat here is just to check and make sure that they're minimally processed when you're picking out plant-based alternatives. And focusing on healthy fats. So there's many different kinds of fats, 4 to be exact, and the ones that are healthy that we want to include in our diet are those mono and polyunsaturated fats. So those are the things that are going to come from your nuts and seeds, your avocado, olive oil. Those are all healthy fats that you want to include in your diet because we do need fat in order for our bodies to run smoothly. So want to make sure we are getting fat, but make sure it's those healthy forms and avoiding and limiting those unhealthy forms of fat. So that brings us to what to limit. So I'm going to jump straight to the bottom one here because we just talked about fats. So red meat and poultry with the skin on, those are going to have a lot of saturated fat. We want to limit those as much as possible. The other things we want to limit are sodium. So checking labels, making sure that you're buying things that are reduced sodium or low in sodium. If you are buying beans that are canned or vegetables that are canned, making sure that you rinse those to get off any of the added extra sodium. And then also reducing your sweets, which I know that is a really tough thing to do at this time of year when sweets are kind of everywhere that we look. So wanting to pay attention to how much sugar, added sugar you're taking in, particularly with those sweetened beverages. So oftentimes we don't think about what we're drinking as contributing to our calories and our sugar intake, but oftentimes those sweetened beverages are our largest source of added sugar. So want to make sure we're limiting that. One other word on sodium, because many of the favorite holiday dishes are packed with sodium, things like breads and rolls, poultry, canned soups. Those are all three common foods that are the biggest culprits for adding sodium to your diet. So again, making sure when you're shopping for ingredients to prepare your holiday meal, look at the labels, choose those ones that have the lowest amount of sodium, or maybe think about some alternatives that have a less sodium. You could also, to add more flavor to your food without needing added salt, you could use herbs and spices like rosemary and cloves to flavor your dishes instead of salt. And then, as we mentioned already here, of limiting saturated fat by limiting those animal products. So some tips for choosing wisely. Comparing your nutrition information on package labels when you're selecting products, look for those things like amount of sodium, the amount of added sugar, how much saturated fat, is there any trans fat? And just a reminder that there could be trans fat in a product and it still says 0 on the label. So you want to make sure you're taking a look at what the ingredients are. So if it has partially hydrogenated oil, that means it does have some degree of trans fat, even if it says 0 on the label, because food companies are allowed to put up to 0.5 grams of trans fats and not indicate trans fat on the label. So just make sure you're looking at those ingredients as well. Keeping an eye out on your calorie intake. So we want to make sure that we're burning calories by being active, which we'll talk about later, but that we're also not overeating. So it's really easy to do at this time of year because we're eating more often. We're getting usually bigger servings. Also, eating more of those foods that have higher amounts of calories. So make sure that you're just keeping an eye on those portions and eating reasonable portions. So especially if you go out to eat, one of the things that you can do is, automatically when you get your meal, kind of separate it out so that half of it is kind of set aside and that's what you can take home with you, and just eat the other half at the restaurant. Because oftentimes when we're served meals, when we go out to eat, they're really large servings and it's really more than one person really needs in one meal. Eating a wide variety of foods to making sure that you're getting all of the nutrients that your body needs. So this is where it comes back into play of making sure you're getting those fruits and vegetables, that you are eating healthier alternatives for your protein sources like those beans and legumes, nuts and seeds, and making wise choices there. The most healthy meals that you'll get are those that you prepare at home. So I encourage you, I know it's busy at this time of year, but I encourage you to try to cook at home as much as possible. And if you have a potluck to go to, or, even just an event that you're not necessarily, it's not necessarily planned for you to bring something, you might want to bring something anyway. That way, you know that of the food served, there's at least one thing that you know will be healthy for you to eat. The other thing that happens more often this time of year is we eat mindlessly, and we end up gaining weight from eating too much. And then what do? We make a New Year's resolution to lose weight. But instead of getting caught up in that kind of wheel, what you can do is take a healthier approach to what you eat during the holiday season, so you don't have to worry about those January New Year's resolutions. And the way to do that is to make sure you're eating more mindfully. So when we are consuming food just because it's there, or eating when we're distracted, such as watching TV, doing work on our computer or on our phones, that's mindless eating. We might also be eating for emotional comfort rather than eating when we're hungry. So the way to be more mindful is to pay more attention to what you're eating. Slow down. Eat only when you're hungry. When you do eat, make sure you're controlling your portions. You're not just eating whatever's put in front of you, but you're eating slowly so that your body can tell you and send you the signals when you're full. Pay attention, plan out what you're going to eat, especially if you're going to a party. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And keep a food diary. That's a good way, and this is a way that I recommend to my clients very frequently, is to keep track of how you're feeling when you're craving a certain food, how you feel right before you eat it, and how you feel after you eat. That's a good way for you to start to recognize, are you eating more for comfort rather than hunger? Are there certain emotions linked to certain cravings that you have? It's a good way to just start to tune into those things that might be happening in your body that are more on an emotional level rather than on a physiological level. Also, that helps you keep track of what you're eating, and you can start to recognize some areas where you might be taking in more calories than what you really thought you were. So maybe it's from some of those sugary beverages, as an example, or a Frappuccino from Starbucks. So just starting to recognize and pay closer attention to what you are consuming. So speaking of beverages, let's get into some of the holiday beverages. So the things that tend to pop up this time of year are things like eggnog, hot chocolate, apple cider. These are all things that I'm not going to tell you don't have any at all, because, it's fun to have these beverages during the holiday season. But some tips here to help you make them a little more healthy. So for your eggnog, you can get the flavor of the eggnog without all of the calories by only taking about 1 part or half a glass of the eggnog and then cutting that with either a skim milk or a plant-based milk, so that you're not getting all of those calories from just straight eggnog. Also, pass on those additions like the whipped cream. That just adds extra sugar and saturated fat that really the beverage doesn't need, right? If you're just trying to get that flavor. You could also look for alternatives. There are some low-fat and non-dairy versions out there that you can check out that are a little bit healthier than the traditional, straight eggnog. For hot chocolate, some ways that you can lighten it up are using skim milk or plant-based milk when you're making your hot chocolate. Avoid the whipped cream. You would also, look at the packaging. With instant hot chocolate, look for products that are marked as low sugar or sugar-free. Go easy on the toppings, so you can add some more flavor by adding things like grated cinnamon or nutmeg and skipping that whipped cream, as we said. Apple cider. Not all ciders are created equal, so check the added sugar content, because that added sugar is going to increase that calorie intake, increase your chance of weight gain, really add sugar to your diet that you might not be thinking about. So again, look for those low sugar, sugar-free options, or you can do it yourself. So make cider at home using unsweetened apple juice and a variety of spices. So here's where you can add in things like cinnamon sticks or cloves or nutmeg, or even whole cranberries. you get to keep the flavor while cutting the calories and making that beverage a healthier choice. So let's shift now to family meals. And I know we're past Thanksgiving already here, so you may have already had your turkey and not really planning to have turkey for your next holiday meal. But in case you are, if you are having turkey, choose wisely if you're eating it. So reach for the lighter pieces of meat. They have fewer calories, less fat than the darker ones. Make sure you take the skin off. That's going to reduce the fat as well. Keep your portions in check. So a serving size of meat is 3 ounces. That's about the size of the palm of your hand or a deck of cards. So be conscious of how much you put on your plate. Pass on the seconds. I know sometimes when we're with family, you might get kind of pressured to take seconds. You know, if just remember that a portion should be 3 ounces. Anything over that, you're really increasing that amount of saturated fat that you're consuming. You should also take smaller portions of other meats if you're having something like ham or lamb. Those are also, again, high in saturated fat. Oftentimes we have turkey. It's also served with gravy, so watch out for that. There's oftentimes a lot of extra sodium in gravy, so limit it to a tablespoon. Keep it off of the other items. You know, just put it on the turkey if that's what you really want it on, or just on the mashed potatoes, but you know, make sure you're really limiting that. Dressing, which I call stuffing, so I don't know how many people out there call it dressing versus stuffing, but it's on here as dressing. It's intended to be a complement, not an entree. So limit that serving to about 1/4 cup, or even just 1, heaping tablespoon, and know what's in it. So if the dressing is filled with fatty meats like sausage or pork, or it looks greasy or buttery, if it's made with white bread or sweet rolls, it might be best to pass on that. Better options include stuffings that are made with whole grain or cornbread, have no meat, or maybe they have things like nuts or lots of veggies and fruits. So ask whoever made it what's in it. If you're the one making it, maybe look for those healthier alternatives of ways to make stuffing where you are using some of those healthier items versus all of those heavy and saturated fat and sugar and extra calories and sodium. Casserole, oftentimes you don't know what's all in there, so make sure you talk to the person who made it, or if you're making it yourself, just know what's in there. For dessert, certainly have dessert, but keep your portions in check. You can maybe split a piece of pie with somebody instead of having a whole piece to yourself. If there's multiple desserts to choose from, maybe pick out the one that you like the most and stick with just one. So, you can treat yourself. I mean, it's the holidays. We want to have a treat, but just make sure that you are being smart in your decisions there and treating yourself right, contributing to those healthy habits that you've been working on. Okay, so the other thing that happens this time of year are parties. So how do we stay healthy when we're at a party? For appetizers, get involved. Oftentimes, especially if you're having something at work or with family, you might have to volunteer to bring a dish for the party. So sign up, make something that's a healthier item. That way you have at least one good option to enjoy. Make sure you're prepared. So if the party is during lunch, eat a healthy breakfast and follow that up with a mid-morning high fiber snack, like an apple, a handful of almonds. That way you're not coming to the party really hungry. You're already kind of satiated, so you're not going to overeat. Same thing if the party is after work. Eat a protein-packed lunch, and then later in the afternoon have that high fiber snack so that you're not too hungry when you go to the party. Also map it out. Oftentimes there's like a buffet of food, right? So look it all over before you pick up your plate and start loading up your plate. So avoid loading up on those foods that are fried, buttered, or things that have a lot of cheese and cream. Even though you might be taking small portions, if you're taking something of everything, it could really fill up that plate really quickly, and those fat-laden bites can pack a punch. So look for things on the buffet that are fruits and vegetables, whole grain crackers, things that are baked or grilled, and fill your plate with those rather than those fattier, less healthy options. Use the buddy system for your dessert, so you can split a dessert with someone. For your beverages, I mean, we go to holiday parties, you're probably going to have some alcoholic beverages if you drink alcohol. So if you are drinking alcohol, alternate each glass with a glass of water. That will help you reduce your thirst, also helps you fill up your stomach so that you're consuming fewer of those alcoholic or high sugar content drinks. And especially if you're having dessert already, avoid those seasonal holiday drinks that have a lot of sugar. You pick one or the other. If you know you're going to have a holiday drink that has a lot of sugar, skip dessert, or vice versa. So, watch out for that added sugar because those holiday beverages might as well be a dessert, right? So if you're already having dessert and then you have one of those sugary holiday beverages, you're kind of in reality having two desserts. So then how can we make our traditions more healthy? We can make some substitutes when we're cooking is one thing we could do. So some smart substitutions that you can make for your favorite holiday meals. Instead of butter, you might use a healthier oil or substitute it with unsweetened applesauce when you're baking. Use a lower calorie sugar substitute if you're using sugar. If you're making something with flour, use half white, half whole wheat flour. If you're making something with milk in it, maybe use, or heavy cream, maybe it calls for, you might use a low fat or a skim milk or maybe a plant-based milk. Instead of adding a bunch of chocolate chips or candy, you can use things like dried fruit or things like cranberries or cherries. Other ways to get great flavor is to use extracts like vanilla, almond, peppermint. That way you're adding flavor instead of adding more sugar and butter. You can use vegetable oils in place of butter when you're cooking. So if you're making something on the stove top, using vegetable oil in place of butter. Using whole grain breads, rice, and pasta instead of those white. So talked about earlier, using those whole grains. When you are, other thing, when you're cooking, you can bake or grill or steam vegetables instead of frying them. And choose, when you are buying your holiday ingredients, choose products with lower amounts of sodium and added sugar. For the beverages, you can use spices, fresh herbs, citrus juice, things like that to flavor your drinks instead of those excess added sugars. So just some ideas there for some healthier alternatives. So next, we've talked a lot about food. Let's talk about getting active in our physical activity, because oftentimes we get into winter, it's cold outside, we might be starting to, and we're busy too, like shopping for presents and things like that. But we want to make sure we're still being physically active. So I've got some ideas here for you to get active this holiday season. You want to be spending time with your family and friends. So if all of your holiday traditions only revolve around eating, you can liven things up for your family by getting people to be physically active together. You can get everyone to go outside to play or go sledding. If you're in a wintry place, you can ice skate, play in the snow, go for a walk or a snowshoe instead of heading to the couch after a big meal, so that you can get some fresh air, get everybody out to do something together. You can even get the dog out there to go for a walk. If you have family visiting from out of town, a great way to entertain out of town guests is to, go visit your local gym or your community center. Maybe grab a basketball, shoot some hoops, or play volleyball. Something fun that you can do together that gets everybody active so that you're not just eating these big meals and then sitting on the couch. But you're getting out, you're having fun. I don't know about all of you, but when I'm physically active, it's a huge boost to the mood too. So get everybody out having fun together. So let's also talk a bit about managing stress, because this could be a time of year that's really stressful for a lot of us. There's a lot going on. Maybe there's some family conflicts that you're stressing about. So what are some great ways that you can help manage your stress as you're going through the holidays? One thing to do is to slow down. You don't have to say yes to everything. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You don't have to do everything. You can make some time for yourself and slow down so that you're not constantly running behind and feeling like you're rushing and that you're late for things. Plan ahead. Make sure you give yourself enough time. Give yourself a break too. You don't have to do everything. Make sure you are getting enough sleep. Most of us need somewhere in the realm of 7 to 9 hours of sleep in order to be healthy and happy. So make sure you're giving yourself enough time to get whatever that amount is for you, that you're getting that. Take time to connect with your friends and family that you have positive relationships with, that you can laugh with, that you can share with. This time of year, lots of places are looking for volunteers. Good way to boost your endorphins and to, feel good is to give back. So maybe volunteer some of your time. Be sure to be active and move every day. If you're moving your body, you're not only healthier, but oftentimes happier when you're getting those endorphins going. Cut back on the caffeine and alcohol. And finally here, focus on the things you can change. There are going to be some maybe things that you have to do or people that you have to interact with that maybe you have strained relationships with, but make sure you focus on the positive and focus on putting your energy into the things that you are able to influence and to help keep you positive. Next is the mindful pause. So this was one that we went over during the webinar on stress management. So our breath is a tool that we have with us at all times to help us manage those times of stress. So before you confront a problem or before you go into a situation with a family member that you might have a conflict with, take a moment to pause and deepen your breath. It could be for 10 to 15 seconds. Just take those big, long, full breaths. Particularly focus on lengthening your exhale to bring you out of that fight or flight sympathetic nervous system response back to your natural state, the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest. The other thing, especially if you're going into a situation where you're confronting an issue or a problem, before you go in and you stop and you take that pause of your breath, also ask yourself, which of my character strengths will I bring forward right now? That will help you move into your situation a little more mindful and able to handle whatever is thrown at you. So I went through all of this pretty quickly. And so if you need some help or you want to receive some healthy holiday recipes, you can provide us with your email address. If you're watching live on Facebook, you can send that to us via the message option. You could also go to our website and fill out the contact form and just in the body ask for those healthy holiday recipes. We'll send those off to you. Another thing you can do if you're just feeling like you need some extra help with getting on the path to healthy habits is schedule a free consultation with me. It's completely free. It's up to an hour that we get on the phone or on Zoom and we chat. You can book that by going to either Firefly Community or Firefly Yoga Retreats. Go to book online and you'll be able to see my calendar and schedule something that works mutually. If you don't see any times on there that work for you, fill out that contact form, send me a message, tell me what does work for you. There are sometimes places where I can squeeze you in that might not be showing on that booking calendar. So just be sure to reach out to us and we'll get you scheduled for that. And that brings us to the end of not only this presentation, but also our Healthy Habits webinar series. Stay tuned for new things that will be coming up in January. If you're not already on our newsletter list, make sure you get on that. And I look forward to starting a new decade with all of you coming up here soon. So have healthy and happy holiday season, and I will talk with you again soon.